It was suggested to me that I should introduce myself on this channel, and I'm constantly getting asked questions by people about how I got certain job, certain show, certain festival job. The brainchild of those two things is that I sit down, run you through my career so far, let you know what I actually do, what I have done, what I'm currently doing, and how I did it. A lot of the content that I want to put on this channel is a lot of going through my life with me, going on to these jobs with me and seeing them in real time. But I do also want to include some sit down, chatty kind of videos. This might be a long one. Grab a drink and let's do a thing. I've always loved music, theatre, entertainment of all kinds. I got into this industry, as most people do, first of all as a consumer and then as a performer. In high school I was in musicals, I wrote my own music, I had a band with one of my best friends, Jake. I really loved being part of the experience of bringing this art to life, but I didn't really ever gel with being on stage. I found it really hard to connect with the audience, to feel like it wasn't just a room full of strangers and people that I was actually connecting with. Some people are very good at that. I was not. As soon as I figured out that there was another option to being involved in this space without being the person on stage, that was pretty much it for me. I was done. While I was in high school, I studied a music industry TAFE course, and I was also working in a cafe in my hometown that was owned by three brothers. One of them was an audio engineer, and he ran a studio outside of the cafe. From inside of the cafe? The room was in the cafe. You had to get into the cafe to get into the studio. While we were cleaning up in the cafe, he would show me mixes. I would get to go in sometimes and see him working with artists and bands, maybe help set up a mic every now and then. And it was the first time that I ever saw someone's career and went, I want to do that. Ironically though, no interest in studio work. I've never done studio work as an adult. It's been all live. As soon as I finished high school, I moved to Sydney to start studying audio engineering and sound production. One of the biggest questions that I'm always asked is about studying, whether someone should study, where I studied, if I would recommend it. I'm pretty jaded about my uni experience because I didn't feel like I got a lot out of it. I ended up leaving uni eventually because I was too busy working in the industry and I didn't feel like I was getting anything out of it anyway. But before I got to that point, being at this uni made me reconsider whether this was something I even wanted to do. It was a lot of money to invest into a trade that did not require a university degree to get into, and I learned everything that I now know on the job. My tip is look around at unis if you want to go to uni. If you are going to uni for something in this world, you better be getting what you want out of it because you don't need a degree. Could you benefit from one? Sure. Do you need it? No. I'm not telling you not to go to uni, but I am telling you to look into it because I am $50,000 plus in debt to a degree that I didn't even end up getting. There I was, hating life, hating uni, really struggling with the full-time work and full-time employment because I was completely supporting myself, struggling with that life balance. One of my best friends, Bryony, was directing a show of the last 5 years. Her husband, Matt, was doing all of the tech. A bunch of our friends were in the cast and in the rest of the crew, and they asked me if I wanted to come and help do tech with Matt. Doing this show made me realize why I fell in love with this industry in the first place and why it's what I was pursuing, and I would have given it up if not for this experience. We had so much fun. It was such a good show, and it ultimately led to my first proper jobs in the industry. One of our Cathys, my friend Erin, knew someone who worked for an audio company that supplied gear and staff to operate it to community theatre shows, very wealthy private schools who could afford it, and really anyone who had an audio need. I sent them an email, had a little interview, started working with them immediately. This company taught me everything that I thought I would be learning at uni, and they paid me to do it, which is why I say that you shouldn't just rush into study. If you can find an opportunity to learn on the job in an industry like this, it is very beneficial. I loved working with this company, and there are not a lot of photos that I can show you of this time because children, but a primary school show of Aladdin that we did. Year 3 to 6? Yes, that's Pyro. While I was working with this company, I was also doing any little freelance jobs that came my way, and through one of those, which was a backyard gig for Phil Jameson in Blacktown, I met a woman who owned a venue. She asked me to come and take a couple of shows at the venue, which very quickly escalated into me becoming the venue manager. This venue sadly no longer exists, but it was my absolute heart and soul for the time that I was there. I loved working there. I met so many incredible people festival there. I got to work on so many cool performances with so many cool artists. My responsibilities as the venue manager included booking the venue, being the person that people would speak to about their tech needs, and either operating the show myself or hiring and training staff who would operate it in my absence. While working at this venue, I met Ali, who is the tech director for another venue which sadly no longer exists. She was the tech director and was moving to Melbourne, so they needed her replacement, and she suggested me. This venue was so much bigger than the other venue I was working in. It had so many very bizarre shows in it because of the space. Pretty much anything that you could shove into a space with a stage and an audience went into that venue. We did podcast recordings, we did lots of music shows, we did small theatre, we did burlesque, we did pole dancing shows, we did variety shows. The venue was old, and a lot of the gear needed to be upkept. It was definitely a learning curve in managing gear, managing people, because again, like the other venue, it was my responsibility to be in contact with people about their tech needs, operate the shows myself, or hire and maintain staff who would operate in my absence. These 3 jobs, the 2 venues and the theatre shows, I did at the same time. It was pretty much the hours of 3 full-time jobs at all times, and it was definitely not sustainable, but I loved all of these places so much. I was very young, so I had yet to figure out a good work-life balance, especially in this industry. It definitely didn't come without challenges. Here we see photos of me after a particularly frustrating night, a very overwhelming show, having my knockoff drink in a bin in the kitchen. Working in these venues, I was exposed to the world of Fringe. I pretty quickly fell in love with this world of cabaret and burlesque and comedy and shows created by independent artists who invested everything into these shows and then brought them to their audience. Getting to be part of shows like that with people who were so creative and invested in what they were doing made my tiny little heart do things. Eventually, when I was ready for a change, that then meant that I applied for the Adelaide Fringe Festival. How did I get this job? They opened applications on their website for production staff. I applied, had an interview, got the job, rearranged my entire life to leave Sydney and go to Adelaide for the duration of the festival. This was the first time that I'd travelled away for work, other than moving myself to Sydney for this career, and I learned so much. After Adelaide Fringe, the plan was to head straight to Melbourne for the Melbourne Comedy Festival, which I got in the same way that I got the Adelaide Fringe job. Open application for production crew, interview, move to a new city. Unfortunately, the world event that must not be named, that YouTube does not like to be named, happened. Thankfully, the year after, I got to go back to Comedy Festival and actually do a season, which was one of my favourite jobs that I've ever done. I had such an incredible group of front of house staff and artists in my room. We had Melanie Bracewell, who won an award, Geraldine Hickey, who won an award for the best show. I did make her display it on stage in a little lighting special. Karen from Finance was also in the room, which made me very happy because it was a show that had a lot of cues with lighting, Q-Lab, sound. It was such an incredible work experience, and I cannot wait to go back and do another comedy festival. During that time and after that, I was just minding my freelance business, taking little jobs in small venues all over Sydney, doing short runs on little theatre shows, enjoying the freedom of picking and choosing my own schedule as well. When I got an email from someone saying they got my contact from someone they knew and they were looking for bump-in crew for a professional theatre show in Sydney. I loved theatre and I was working in a lot of amateur theatre, but I didn't have any real intention of getting into the commercial or professional theatre scene. From where I was on the outside at the time, it seemed like a very hard industry to get into. It seemed like there was a select few people they wanted to work with and they had those people and it was all sorted. I didn't know where the door was to even try and shove my foot in if I wanted to. I was also pretty set on just freelancing and continuing to do the Fringe circuit for as long as I shall live. Did the bump in, loved the bump in, worked with some great people in a really cool theatre. Shortly after, I received a call asking if I would want to stay on the show to swing the Sydney season, which basically means that I would be a casual who comes in a couple of times a week. This show was Come From Away. I'd never seen Come From Away. I didn't really know what it was about when I started working on the show, which just meant that I got to fall in love with the show from a really unique perspective, which was backstage, seeing all the tech and how it worked, seeing the cast creative process into becoming these characters. The Sydney season was unfortunately interrupted by a 4-month lockdown, and I missed my last shift on the show because I had the spicy cough, but it was still such an incredible introduction to professional theatre and I loved every second of it. While I was working on this show, I was also working on Hamilton. Just like Come From Away, someone had been given my contact when looking around for another Sydney swing, and I signed my contract to work on the show the day before we went into that lockdown. I was already such a huge fan of the show, so getting to work on the show, let alone the original Australian company, was pretty special. I almost didn't even make it to work on the show. During that lockdown, I was offered a contract for another show that I was absolutely going to take because of the show and because it would be a full-time gig instead of a swung gig. But when that lockdown got extended, that show got postponed for a year. Which the silver lining of that experience was that I got to continue working on Come From Away, I got to start working on Hamilton, and I got to learn so much on both of those shows. The team on Hamilton were some of my favorite people I've ever met. They were all so incredible. To be part of a show that you love so much and that other people love so much is a time. The community around Hamilton is unlike anything that I thought existed in theatre at the time, even though I was a theatre fan. The fans of this show are heavily involved in the company, keep up to date with the performers, keep up to date with the crew. There's a passion for this show that is unlike anything I've seen for any other show, except for maybe Phantom of the Opera. Remember that contract that I mentioned that I would have not worked on Hamilton if I'd accepted? That was for Phantom of the Opera. Phantom is my favorite show of all time. It's been my favorite show since I was a kid. Watching that show inspired me to give a shit about this industry, about theatre, about backstage. So as much as I loved Hamilton, I would absolutely have jumped onto Phantom if it had happened at that time, but I'm very grateful that it got postponed so that I could do both. Hamilton and Come From Away wrapped up. We still had a chunk of time before the other Phantom was meant to start, so I was offered a position on another show of Phantom of the Opera outside on Sydney Harbour, completely exposed to the elements. The first time that Phantom had been staged outside like that ever. This show was epic. This is what the stage looked like the day that I arrived for bump in, and this is what it looked like when it was done. Nothing about Phantom is small, and then they chucked it outside, which made it even more ridiculous. I had on-stage cues. I started every single show standing at the back of the stage, kind of in view of the audience, watching the chandelier rise, waiting to strike a mic off stage, and that is going to be a core memory. This company was full of some of the greatest people that I've ever had a chance to work with. There was something so incredible about doing something so ridiculous that we all just banded together and made a show happen, which was magic. In the entire season, exposed to the elements, we only stopped the show twice. One of those times you might have seen from a video that went viral of Georgie and Josh getting absolutely torrentially biblically poured on. What that video doesn't show is every department in the company panicking in that weather, and also the audience huddled in their little ponchos trying to stick it out. I'm so proud of that show and to have been part of that sound team who are all the genuine best people. That leads us to now. Come From Away led to Phantom, Hamilton led to Mary Poppins, which is what I'm currently working on. Right now I'm a swing on Mary Poppins in Sydney, waiting for the postponed season of Phantom to start in August, freelancing while I'm there. How much I love Mary Poppins surprised me. I knew I'd have a good time on the show and would find things to appreciate about the production, but I really thought it was going to be really bubbly and jolly and happy because it's a kids show. And then I realized kind of not a kids show. There are so many dark elements and themes in the show, so much cool tech. The show itself is so impressive to watch, and I would pay money just to go watch Step in Time over and over and over again, even if it was just that 10-minute chunk of the show. Other than The Phantom on the Harbour, all of the shows that I mentioned are still running in Australia. I will link them in the description so you can go and grab tickets and see them. I cannot recommend it enough. I'm so in love with my job, with my career, with the people that I get to work with and create with. That is why I want to share it with you. Person on the other side of what will be a screen but is currently just my camera on a stack of books. I have a lot of ideas for things that I want to share with you, but if there's anything in particular that you want to see or know, let me know. I will have new videos every Monday, which you can keep up to date with when they get released on Instagram. If you're still here at this point, thank you for watching. I will see you next week. That's it. That's the end of the video.